Hello,
Приветствую,
friends.
друзья! Вы на
You are at the
фабрике новостей. Это
factory.
правильный
News
выбор.
this is the right
Я рад
choice,
приветствовать
and
в
I
своей
am glad.
виртуальной
Welcome
студии
to your
Александра
virtual
Демченко,
studios of
аналитика. Александр,
Alexander
спасибо, что вы с нами.
Demchenko, analyst.
Здрасте, Александр.
Alexander,
Здрасте
thank you
всем.
for being with us. Hello,
Ну,
Alexander.
как всегда, не
Hello,
поспеваем мы
everyone.
за
Well, as always,
событиями,
no, keeps
даже
up
скорее
even faster
заявлениями
with
или
statements, or we
обещаниями
have already heard
событий.
promises of
Вот уже мы
events.
слышим
It seems
вроде
like
бы то,
this is
чего
what
мы
we've
так
been
давно
waiting for
ждали.
so long. Statement
Заявление в
towards
сторону
Russia
России.
stated this,
Заявил
and
это и
the
министр
finance minister
финансов,
said this
заявил
is a
это,
cash.
подхватывая
Words of the
слова
minister of
министра
finance.
финансов и
And we'll not even know what it's called
не
now.
знаю даже, как его теперь
Call
называть, Линдси
NGM
Грэм.
before it
Раньше
was
это
a
был
big
большой друг
friend.
Украины,
Ukraine
теперь
is now
это
a Republican we can.
республиканец. Можем
Just
просто
say what if
сказать,
Russia say?
что если Россия, дескать, не
Not.
будет
We'll be ready for peace
готова к
negotiations
мирным
quickly.
переговорам быстро,
There will be
будут
very
против нее
serious
очень
sanctions against
серьезные
her.
санкции.
This
Вот
is what this indicates,
о чем
or
это
this.
свидетельствует? Или это
Just a
лишь
screen.
ширма?
When did you
Вот вы
hear
когда
about the
услышали, о
World
чем
Cup?
подумали?
Thought yes. Nothing.
Ничего я не
I didn't
подумал, это
think
ни о
about
чем не
anything.
свидетельствует.
Does not
Пока что мы
indicate
видим, что
yet
в отношении
what we
России
see.
ничего
Nothing
не
is happening with
происходит.
regard to Russia. Russia
Россия
is
ничего
getting
не
nothing.
получает.
I mean
Я
some
имею в
hard
виду
blows from
каких-то жестких ударов от
Trump.
Трампа.
Well, he
Но он
kept the
сохранил
sanctions
санкции.
well
Ну
okay.
хорошо,
Say
сохранил.
thanks
Спасибо и на
and
этом.
on this over time.
Со временем,
Probably we
наверное,
will remove
мы
it.
увидели, что
We
уже
saw that
пропало
already.
с сайта
Agreement
Белого дома
disappeared from the White
соглашение,
House
оборонное
website. Defense
соглашение
agreement
с
with
гарантиями
guarantees.
определенной
Certain
безопасности
security
между
between the
Штатами и Украиной,
states.
которое
And
подписал
Ukraine,
Байден.
which Biden
Ошибка
signed. Error
404.
404
Теперь
now.
это.
By the way, this is such.
Кстати, это такая
Price,
цена,
not
знаете,
ratified through
не ратифицированному через
Congress,
Конгресс, через
through
любой
any
парламент
parliament.
соглашению.
Agreement cannot be
Нельзя
signed
подписывать
agreement.
соглашение
With
с
presidents
президентом.
come
Президенты приходят и
and
уходят.
leave only through
Только
parliament
через
or through.
парламент или через
I don't
подобные
see similar
структуры.
structures yet.
Я не вижу пока
Nothing.
ничего. Я вижу,
I see
что
that the
переговоры
negotiations
в
are in
Стамбуле
Istanbul.
провалились
Russia
Россией
and the United
и
States
Штатами.
failed at
Что
the
стороны
parties.
ничему
We
не
didn't get
пришли, кроме
anywhere
просто
after that.
6-часового разговора. Дипломаты не
600th
вернулись,
new
очередной
ambassador,
посол, ну и
well,
хорошо.
that's good. It's good that I
Хорошо, что не
won't take it home.
посудомойка.
Diplomats
Дипломаты не
did
вернулись,
not return
консульства не
consulates,
открыты,
did not.
дипмиссии не
Diplomatic
работают,
missions are
агентура
open.
российская пока
Agents
сидит
are
и
not
ждет,
working. The
когда ее
Russian one
впустят
is still
под
sitting and
предлогом
waiting for her.
дипломатических
Will be let in under the
сотрудников
pretext
и
of
так далее.
diplomatic employees and so on,
Владимир
but
Путин пока
Vladimir
получает
Putin
всё
is
то,
getting
что он
everything he
хотел.
wanted so
А
far,
Дональда
and
Трампа
Donald
ничего при
Trump
этом не
didn't do
делает.
anything about it.
То,
Doing
что
what
мы
we hear
слышим в исполнении
performed. Minister of
финансов или
Finance or
сенатора
Senator
Линдси
of the
Грэма,
NMA, who
который
today wanted to
сегодня
turn
захотел,
to
повернулся к
trampling
Трампу
back points.
задней точкой, завтра захотел, повернулся передом и так далее.
For this
Никакое
knowledge
значение уже
no
не имеет,
longer
это
has
прекрасно
this. Understood
Но
perfectly, but on
6
June 6th of
июня
this year,
2024 года
Vladimir Putin
публично во время
publicly
интервью
during
заявил
interview
следующее,
stated the
практически дословная
following
цитата.
practically.
Если
Verbatim
хотите,
quote,
сказал
if you
Путин,
want said.
обращаясь к
Putin
Штатам,
addressing the states,
если
if
вы
you want.
хотите
Complete.
завершить войну,
You just need to take the war
вам
and
достаточно просто взять и
stop
прекратить
arms
поставки
supplies
в
to
Украину
Ukraine.
оружия.
Then
Тогда
howl is the
война
law.
закончится за 2-3
Replace
месяца,
media.
сказал Владимир Путин. Мы видим, чего он хотел, и мы
We see
видим,
what he's
чего он
doing.
хочет. Мы видим, что делает
Donald
Дональд Трамп.
Trump, such a feeling
Такое ощущение, что
TM,
Дональд Трамп просто
just,
берет и
Beth and
выполняет все те
fulfills all
требования,
those
которые
requirements,
ранее
which
еще
Vladimir
хорошо был
Putin
Путин.
had previously announced.
Вот
Here
разведданных
is
нет.
intelligence data.
Вот
Here
спутниковых данных
is
нет.
satellite
Мы
data.
уже
No
об этом
data.
сегодня узнали.
We already found
Вот
out about this
предупреждение
today.
о
Here is a
ракетных
warning
атаках,
about
запусках
missile
ракет,
attacks,
самолетов,
launches of
а
rockets,
дроновых
aircraft,
атаках нет.
drones.
Вот уже есть угроза выслать 240 тысяч украинских граждан с территории США, которые получили временную защиту. И
Trump
Трамп
says, I'll
говорит, я
think
еще
about
об
it.
этом
Yes,
подумаю.
yes.
Да, да,
No.
нет, да.
Yes, we have full intelligence
Вот у нас
data.
разведданные полностью
Our
исчезли.
weapons
Вот у
have
нас оружие
completely
полностью исчезло. И,
disappeared,
как оказалось,
disappeared,
уже второй
and
раз
as it turned out,
с начала
already
января
for the second
текущего
time,
года.
beginning of January
За
of the
время
current year,
небольшого
during
срока
short term
каденции,
of the cadence
начавшейся
that began.
Дональда
Donald
Трампа.
Trump, so in order
Поэтому,
not
что бы ни
to,
говорили,
American officials said, by the
американские
way,
чиновники
let me
оценили
remind
потому,
you
что и
that
Трамп тоже
Donut
заявлял,
TM will also
что
make
он
a
будет
statement,
давить и на
put pressure
Украину, и
on
на
both
Россию.
Ukraine
Что
and
если
Russia.
Украина, говорил Трамп еще во
There will be
время
no during the election
избирательной
campaign.
кампании, не будет
I agree
согласна
with
с
his
его
position,
позицией,
then he
то
will
он будет
take weapons
забирать у
from
Украины
Ukraine,
оружие,
slow
тормозить.
down.
Он это
This
сейчас
is
делает,
doing well
хорошо.
now,
А
but
вот
what
если
if?
Россия
Russia will
не
not
согласна и
agree and
ничего
will
не
do
будет
nothing.
предпринимать
We'll
для
take
того, чтобы
steps to ensure
каким-то
that,
образом
somehow
прийти к
come to
мировой,
peace then. He
тогда
will
он будет
introduce
вводить
very
очень
tough hellish.
жесткие адские
There are no
санкции.
hellish
Адских
sanctions,
санкций нет.
but Vladimir.
А Владимир
Putin
Путин
stood
как
on his
стоял на
feet.
своих ультиматумах, так и стоит. Ничего в позиции Путина не изменилось. Более того, Трамп знает
Trump understands Putin's position perfectly well, that he can't change anything with. Putin's position, therefore, took up Ukraine for Zelensky in order to show that Zelensky is to blame for everything. Ukraine is to blame for everything. Ukraine is to blame for everything. not the agreements. Capable Ukraine cannot agree with. Gentlemen, Trump, and so on. It's simple. Ordinary, cheap provocation. Provocation, blurring eyes, and what was in the past. In the office, it happens blame, addressed to Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation directly. Donald Trump's key task, in general, to drag Putin over to his side, and Russia is now in the current global. Zavaruin, we always do the same. We forget a certain moment with you well with. You and many others, because when Donald Trump says that only. With him, Ukraine has cards in the game. Vladimir Putin, we forget that tram. In principle, these cards are from the hands of Ukraine. Constantly. Knocks out now, knocks out weakening. Ukraine intelligence, Ukraine armée. Forces of Ukraine, Ukrainian leadership. And civilians because Russia already having accumulated, and I am more than sure that Trump warned Putin a year in advance that he would to hold up all military aid to Ukraine. What? Now Russian troops are pounding all over Ukraine by gas. Infrastructure, we can talk later. Why is this happening right now? Energy construction, Rog, Poltava, Vinnytsia, and so on. Then I walked everywhere. Even rockets were flying. And Ternopil region, Ivano-Frankivsk region today, and so further. But before that, Donald Trump too helped Putin knock the cards out of his hands. I will remind Ukraine that immediately after the attack, Hamas on Israel, October 7th, 20, third year U.S. Congress for 6 months, froze aid. Ukraine experienced delays in deliveries, weapons, various systems, listening to Shell's intelligence data about parts and so on. And who is this VS? We organized it somehow. I think they forgot Donald Trump, who even then, there was a separate one of its own. The faction has its majority in that too, in the Congress, and blocked all of this. The Speaker of Congress is the same Johnson, which still helps. Tram Ukrainian territories that were squeezed out after the Hamas attack until today. This is Trump helping Vladimir Putin occupy Ukrainian territories and then and now, and talk about that. Trump to impose sanctions against Russia, Russian Federation, Putin, and so further. I don't believe in it, yet we don't. We see some signals that Trump is. We see something ready in this sense. Another signal that Trump is ready to strangle, press, tilt, bend Ukraine here. This is us. We see. Pull one more well pressure line on. You are talking about Ukraine through Vladimir Zelensky. I've already mentioned this in passing. They said this is a figure about for percent support. Ratings, well, Ukrainian sociologists right away. This refuted the Kiev International Institute, Sociology. Your measurements for their T-second VAT tray, 2 fourth years up to 20. The fifth then was 57 at the end of the year. Now they recently published it, I think. Even today, the survey is based on these events. After the Oval Office, Zelensky took a tough stance on defense. 68% now trust Ukrainian interests. To Vladimir Zelensky, well, because, indeed, Ukrainians did not take this well, as attacks only on the president, as attacks on Ukraine in general. In this regard, how much do we? You are counting on the fact that there will be serious pressure on and an attempt to persuade, to force, to create all conditions for elections without any guarantees. Right there. Now the rockets are flying and so on. You still make a choice, Then let's talk to several at once. From the perspective of points of view, you probably heard the statement of the SCS tram, by the way, in the affairs of Russia and Ukraine war, Witkofa, who said that Ukraine and America are two delegations, will meet on Saudi territory. Arabia doesn't care about Ramadan. Americans, they don't even understand Trump at all. Doesn't understand that Arab Muslims in principle cannot. In this time to arrange on your territory. Some discord, some quarrels. Squabbles, well, okay, let's talk about that again. Well, they're going to meet at Saudi Arabian territory. Arabia, and what is said in this. The minerals agreement is planned. Also pin the point. And a truce on Half a year, and now watch
А теперь
carefully what.
внимательно следи, как, что
It's all by
называется,
hand, I explain why.
объясняем. Почему
Half a
полгода,
year, why the
почему
truce, why
перемирие,
these.
почему эти
Numbers where
цифры,
all this comes
откуда
from.
вообще все это возникло.
Arose judging by what is
Судя по
happening
тому,
now.
что сейчас
The American
происходит,
administration
американская
is happening,
администрация
is
готовится к
preparing for a tough
противостоянию, жесткому
confrontation. We
противостоянию
don't
с
know about the
Китаем.
confrontation with
Мы не
China.
знаем,
What kind of
какого именно
confrontation are the
противостояния. Китайцы
Chinese?
недавно
Recently,
обозначили,
the Chinese foreign minister
министр
said
иностранных дел Китая,
that
что к
China
любому
is ready
противостоянию
for
Китай
any
готов даже и
confrontation,
милитарно.
even and. I got the military
Буквально я
one
вчера вечером
yesterday
получил
evening.
информацию
Information
о том,
about
что
what Tava
Тайвань,
what.
что
Taiwanese
представители
representatives
Тайваня
arrive
приезжают в
in
Украину
Ukraine and
и
are
активно
actively interested in
интересуются,
how
как работает
taxi
служба
service
такси во
works
время
during
войны,
war
как
as.
они
They help to
помогают
deliver
развозить
this
ту или
or
иную
that.
помощь,
Help
как
how
магазины
shops work with
работают с
by the
государством
state to
для
ensure
обеспечения
full
полностью
food programs in
продовольственной программы
case.
в случае
Military
военных, боевых
combat
действий или
operations
ракетных
and
ударов.
missiles. The Americans
Американцы
are
расконсервируют свои
unsealing
военные
their
базы в
blows.
Тихоокеанском
Military
регионе,
bases in the
вторгнут туда свои
Pacific
военные
region. They are
силы,
bringing their
вооруженные, в том числе и
military
морские,
forces there,
ВМФ США
armed,
и так далее,
including
и
the
так далее, и
naval
так далее.
navy, USA, and so
Расконсервируют
on,
аэродромы
and so on,
военные и
and so
прочее, и
on,
прочее.
to demothball
Это
military
одна история.
airfields, and etc. and
Если вы
etc.
посчитаете
is
6
one.
месяцев, вы
History, if you
поймете, что
count
6
6
месяцев
months
это
here, you will
сентябрь,
understand that
октябрь
6
месяц.
months is September.
Тогда
October
начинается
is the
новый
month
финансовый
when a
год.
new one begins. Fiscal year.
Вероятно,
Donald
Дональд Трамп
Trump
принял для
probably
себя
took it for
решение
himself. The decision to
слить
merge
Украину,
Ukraine, having
завершив
completed
все, неважно
everything.
каким
No
образом.
matter how capitulation does not. Capitulation, he will see how he will behave. Ukraine, Ukrainians, what will happen next. Europe, what will happen next with Russia in relation to Europe, and so on, he accepted. For myself, the decision to drain all this. Question before the start of the new financial year. Why in the new financial year? It will be necessary to allocate funds for Taiwan or on Paraku Provost with Tavansko from the territory. Taiwan to the territory of the United States that already 100 MLR happening this week. Sent Taiwan residents to the company. U.S. territory to Arizona new. Investments are the first story. The second one is here. Now we understand, yes, he decided. Why 6 months? Further, why 6 months? Because after 6 months, the EU, the Supreme Being says that. Powers the transfer period begins. Here are the 6 months counting down. Here are the elections for you. September, October, about Miracle Petro Poroshenko, who was recently in talks with Trump's team, as it turned out like we. Recently, we literally found out about David 2 weeks ago too, with Pono said about 27 October. 26, 27 October, where did these numbers come from? Why was he so precise? Explained that it was in Ukraine. It seems to me that it is being prepared, is not preparing in Ukraine for the elections in Ukraine. Elections are not needed right now, but elections are being prepared in Washington and in Moscow. Let's not deny it. Direct fact that both Trump and Putin want. Remove one. Zelensky, those who think that these two. Put on the ZEU, which, by the way, I am more. I'm sure he'll support Zelensky. Yes, he will. Already his. Supported this. This is them. They are very naive. Because Putin is also in favor of Trump, first of all. Dinner is not needed. Trump does not need a person. As well as Putin, who is lagging behind. GUSD is not a person like that at all. A second is needed for any surname. Secondly, they need a person who will. Obedient one who will do what? They want to give the profits to the Americans. Part 50% or however much they put there, from port revenues from infrastructure, from some kind of energy organizations, and so on, rare earth metals from companies, etc., and Putin needs it. Influence directly on Ukraine. Iden Palm, all these stories about Budanov, about Zora came here recently. This is possible. Throwing it in the trash is of no use to anyone. It's interesting that Poroshenko and they're using Timoshenko now, understanding. It's great that they won't get anything but for destabilization. MOB will be used, but probably. And it's not for nothing that they're already talking about it. Even some representatives of the Ukrainian authorities I quite publicly recall about Alexei Arestovich, so they're preparing for elections. They want elections in Ukraine. And Trump and Putin each in their own way, but they. Now we've agreed on the rating. Vladimir Zelensky, I think that no one. Like Trump, even Naya and Needitsby. Vladimir Zen. I could be wrong, Alexander. Well, somewhere there. Was about 43%, 47 correct. Well, somewhere around that. Now he said he needs it for 60. Check yes. Now you said he has it for 60. 68 trust level data Kmies posted. Literally today is new 68. 68 means in a significant way, this is it. We can definitely. Fix has grown in recent weeks. The level of trust and support of Ukrainians too. Green. And it will continue to grow the more Trump will twist and try to unscrew. Hands to Zelensky, Ben Zelensky those. More run will grow Ukrainians as. Surkov said, quite stubborn. Guys, if the Ukrainian gives him bird and does as he sees fit, not even, out of spite, and so he considers it necessary. But there is still a very important, interesting point in. Kremlin is the death of Trump after all what happened. In the Oval Office, all this provocation, planned in advance, organized and simply created. The team can even be taken separately. A circle of people surrounded by Trump. Relation. Zelensky, she gave Zelensky a raise. Level of trust among. Ukraine's second Ukraine around the topic not. Holding any elections 2/3. Ukrainians now accept anyone. Candidate who will run against Zelensky. As the enemy 3-4 Ukrainians now performing. In principle against any negotiations where there will be a word or at least a hint of capitulation is 4-5 ACAN. Vladimir Putin now news. Negotiations without Zelensky. Here he can meet. Drum may also have been said by Zelensky recently. Nelly, the card is knocked out of his hands now. The legitimacy is now no longer with. Who to negotiate with, and one more thing. 6 most important, can they now? Will happen without Zelensky without him. Consent without negotiations with him from the Trump administration's White House. Introduce Zelensky thanks to his. The march just took and tore off not just. He took a targeted provocation in the White House and completely. Leveling the Ukrainian delegation, or in the DU, or in ARI, we don't know where they are. We'll be somewhere, we'll be in Saudi Arabia. Meet next Wednesday. But why is this done? It's a trap. Partly for Zelensky here, come to the cook. Mineral deal. Here you go. Agree to it. Truce will talk to Russia later. They will say so. But in reality, this step just gives Trump an opportunity. Unfreeze the negotiation process with. Putin, what does Trump want to laugh at meetings with? Putin has accumulated many questions, which do not concern Ukraine. That's what he wants. Meetings with Putin, he needs to show that. Everything is great. Here he got approval from. Zelensky from Ukraine. Here he goes. Delegate is a piece of shit. I apologize directly to Putin. Trump already said to negotiate yesterday. That will be on Saudi territory. Arabia is probably very important to Aku. Ramadan during the month. 1.5, what does that mean? What is more likely? We need to expect everything soon. Time of the meeting between Putin and Trump somewhere. Here in this. Prone to meet with Putin at any. In which case, even if the pressure is on Moscow. But here there is no other option at all. We must understand one thing with you. An important thing now using Canada as an example. You probably see what's happening now. Tariff wars, terrible, including between. Trump led the negotiations between the states and Canada. Duties imposed, tariff restrictions, etc. and etc. in response mirrored. Canada, and just recently it came out. Minister of Finance, Minister of Economy. Canada. And they say listen to everything that we have. Trump asked to do this throughout this. Transit period of the month, we have completed and increased the quantity. Law enforcement agencies and we became border guards at the border to combat the supply of fentanyl which, and so went by quite a bit, and scanty through our territory fentanyl. This is a Chinese drug that is constantly, it's howling from the territory of Mexico, by the way, or from south, so to speak, to the territory of the state. Deadly drug here, they say we in principle, some people decided there. Migration issues we tried. Establish some kind of contact from the point of view. There are no further economic agreements with the Trump administration. And he took Donald and still introduced, what does this indicate? Ukraine did not sign Saudi Arabia. In Europe, even in Tokyo, someone will go and sign something there. Trump, or even the White House, I think that. Zelensky's return to the White House will be in the near future, by the way. But so that we don't. Signed, it doesn't mean that the position. Trump, his intentions, his desire, his policy will change in relation to Ukraine. He accepted for himself the internal, a probable decision to get closer to Putin, or tear Puna away from China, as you wish. So it is, and call it the same thing to your liking. This decision is implemented into life by KK. Unfortunately, they didn't give a damn about the interests. A huge number of countries, this is already. The second question is in minus, it will be for America. This is a plus for America, Europe, the West, and so on. Further, but he does this and so that. These are the people who criticize there. Zelensky, or they shout there, how is it? Some Ukrainian politicians had to behave like a punk with Trump. There was no girlfriend. No matter how we, Ukraine, behave in this, the situation, the result would be the same. Decision to stop the transfer to Ukraine. Weapons and intelligence data were taken for granted. A few days before the meeting between Zelensky and Trump, everything, and despite the fact that Zelensky agreed to Mineral Naya, agree on the deal and go to Saudi Arabia, send Ukrainian delegation, and we're talking about the armed forces of the Russian Federation. Aniel satellite images and satellite data, and he already received everything he said and sent a letter to which, in fact, there was no in Zelensky already. He said something, he spoke differently, behaved somehow, and speak and do nothing. Changes. Nothing when Clock says General Clock about. Coercion of Ukraine, this does not mean that. The compulsion will be temporary. This means that they relied on coercion directly. Ukraine has only one question. What can this be, or what is so special? Putin can give. Trump just takes and spits. Absolutely everything and everyone, this is the most. The main key question is because it is obvious that Putin will never leave China. I will never leave if he leaves. China won't help him anymore. Like death, so then Trump. This is what Putin needs in the near future. We learned Europe, its position we saw. We saw the emergency summit big, thanks to some countries that directly highlighted significant. The amounts before, and they were increased, for example, as Norway, yes, up to 7.7 or $7.8 billion. Well, colossal amounts. Really, that's not what's being discussed now. Or 120 fighters will provide cover. Yes, this notorious sky, or will be. Fighters to cover. Ukraine as far as Europe is ready for kinetic emptying. Direct, indirect. Confrontation, but involvement in this war. That is, conventionally speaking, not to bomb. Russian positions are fortified there. Command posts, but in any case, knock down the Keeds. And rockets look first. It seems to me that a decision has actually already been made on the issue. Only in Europe will cover part of the figure. The territory of Ukraine is probably western, part in north and center of Kiev including. The planes will be European peacekeepers. Probably at least Europe of this. Once we can say that this is a solution, there will be European peacekeepers if. Only here we're talking about the decision of the Europeans here. They will be like that. There's some good news here. Europe stirred. The sum is huge. 800 billion is partly invested in Ukraine. Its defense capability is partly in its production. Well, as usual, and something for myself, to receive and give something to Ukraine. But the question is, another question is not only in European unity that is being violated. People like Viktor Orban, or partly, Prime Minister of Italy, who is friends with Ivan Mescoloni. And the question is also directly about Putin. And in Trump, notice Lavrov yesterday. Lavrov said that Russia against any European. Peacekeepers on the territory of Ukraine, Russia, against France using its nuclear umbrella and covered it with it. European territory and maybe in. Subsequently, Ukraine, Russia against any security guarantees for Ukraine and any involvement of those or others even. Partly there is the fifth or not the fifth article. NATO from the Ukrainian point of view states, that is, everything is against. Question if they're going to negotiate with Russia, among other things. Trump first of all Trump A. Russians take and say this pass. Putin lets Trump be peacekeepers. Let's think about what will happen next. Trump will most likely eventually. He'll walk around and still say no. There must be other peacekeepers. Let's go. Maybe we'll send Belarusians or Brazilians or Chinese or anyone else. Or we'll send anyone to the Serbs. So here we come across. Resistance on behalf of Russia is the first. History 2. And we also have to understand, and this is also not less important, what Trump probably wants to weaken too, the defense capability of the European Union, because he perceives it, the Commonwealth, this organization, as competitive. And he even wants to do business with. Putin, let's address this situation. Let's take a clean look. Business is here. They are bombing the Russians now. Trump closed all data. Is there no weapons? No rockets, high, Mars, no nothing. Russians bomb gas infrastructure. Ukraine, not only energy gas. Infrastructure of Ukraine, A, in parallel. Russia and the United States agree on. Unpreserved. On. Germans, Nord Stream 2. The American company will receive part of the profit and the Russians will be supply gas where they want it, that's it. Security guarantee from Trump, why then gas? Infrastructure of Ukraine, let's destroy. We'll knock this map out of the hands of the Ukrainian pipeline. Ukraine. Zelensky, we will solve this issue and do it. The only alternative from the outside. Russia will have Americans. We'll see. On this situation from a business point of view, if we're talking about defense, Trump will create in his sphere AI companies and just traditional VPSH will create their own separate ones. Weapons systems sell weapons. Europe, which will need components for a long time since Europe. You can't rearm yourself in one day. Reorienting is a long process. The process will take 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know how much, and Putin will be given the opportunity there. Yourself in Russia, military zero, everything. In this story, there will be 2 winners. Trump thinks he is. Putin and Trump will blackmail Europe. And in relation to Ukraine, it is the same. Politics is the same approach, so I don't. In fact, Alexander likes that. Now Europe too, at least many. Go ahead. Other security contours on territories, continents without giving a damn about it. The US and Russia, and we have no other option. No, I think it is already necessary to understand. The first thing that soon the Americans probably will participate in completely different wars on the other side of this globe. This is the first I think that. Trump will dump Taiwan, I think that. This story will be somewhere in the shed years. If not earlier, they all became crazy. Second, Trump doesn't trust Europe and wants it, forced to accept in case of anything. NATO's participation in this war included, or I won't defend you, that he already said, or you pay and participate in. All my companies, or I will protect you. I won't. So translate from Trepovsky. Language to normal is the second story. And the third great war of Russia in Europe with
В Европе, с
Europe, it is
Европой, она
inevitable when you hear
неизбежна.
in,
Когда вы слышите в
in the
исполнении
performance
Макрона
of the Macron, the
цифру
number 30.
30-й год,
Year, this means that the
это
European,
означает, что европейское
French
развитие,
intelligence, by the way,
французское,
before
кстати, до
that,
этого
American, by the
американское,
way,
кстати, до этого
before this
лично
public,
британское,
the British estimate that the Russian
оценивают то, что Российская
Federation,
Федерация в
in
случае
case of
передышки
respite,
перевооружится полностью к 30-му году и начнется большое
rearmament in
противостояние в
Europe
Европе.
and now me.
А теперь я
I quote
цитирую
one of the
одного
British
из британских
officials,
чиновников,
which
который
literally,
буквально
yes, in my
дальше,
opinion,
по-моему,
can be.
The Telegraph, может быть,
Somewhere in
где-то
another
в
British
британских
media,
медиах, надо проверить,
here it is
заявил
necessary.
следующее.
Czech
После
stated the
общения с
following
администрацией
after
Трампа,
communication.
что
With the
если вы
Trump
думаете, что мы будем
administration,
начинать
what if you?
ядерную
Do you
войну
think we're going to
с
start a
какой-то лужайки в
nuclear
Литве,
war? War over
то вы
some
очень
lawn
сильно и
in
глубоко
Lithuania.
заблуждены.
You are very much and
Трамп
deeply
не будет
mistaken.
воевать за
Trump will
Литву,
not
за
fight
Латвию, за
for
Эстонию,
Lithuania, Latvia for,
за страны
Estonia
Балтии,
for the
за
Baltic
Польшу,
states,
за
for Poland
Финляндию,
for,
за
Finland for the
Чехию
Czech
и так
Republic,
далее.
and so on.
Не
Further,
будет.
he will not fight with
Он не
Putin here.
будет с Путиным воевать. Вот
This is
это
the most
самый главный
important
сигнал от
signal
Трампа.
from
Трамп
Trump.
не
I'm not
готов
ready to fight
воевать с
Putin.
Путиным.
What will happen?
Что будет
Do.
делать Путин?
Putin, he will imitate the
Он будет
process
имитировать
A.
процесс. А
Putin's
ключевая
key
задача
task
Путина не
is not a
перемирие
truce
и
or
не
silence
разоружение.
regime.
Ключевая
Putin's
задача
key
Путина
task.
убрать
Remove
Трампа,
Trump
Америку
America
и
from
Украину.
Ukraine and
И эта
this
спецоперация,
special
как мы
operation,
видим
as
сейчас,
we see now,
приносит
bears
свои
fruit.
плоды.
Well, this
Что ж,
operation is
эта
not finished
операция
yet,
еще не
and
закончена, и
since we
как
know
только мы
about
о
it,
ней знаем,
we will be
мы
for.
будем за ней
Watch her
следить, как
as
она
she turns
разворачивается,
around
и
and
делать
do
все от нас
everything in our
зависящее
power
и
in the
того
same.
же
We expect
ожидаем
our
от наших граждан
citizens
не
not to
вестись
fall
на
for it.
провокации
Provocations,
и
and
не
don't lose
унывать в
heart
любом
in any
случае. Александр,
case.
спасибо вам.
Alexander,
Спасибо за этот
thank you
интереснейший
for
разговор.
this.
Александр
Most
Демченко, аналитик
interesting
курса. Поставьте
conversation,
лайк этому
Alexander.
видео, друзья.
Demchenko
Оно
analyst
того
was
стоит.
with us.